Having shaken up the market with its very first Ioniq, Hyundai did so again with this far more sophisticated Ioniq 5 EV. In this usefully updated form, it's still quite an arresting looking thing, and a car aimed at an EV mid-sized hatch and crossover segment typified by models like the Volkswagen ID4, Ford's Explorer, the Polestar 2, and this Hyundai's close cousin, the Kia EV6. You have to offer something interesting and different in that kind of company. The Ioniq 5 very definitely does.
Hyundai's Ioniq 5 EV will still turn a few heads. Here we look at the updated version. Exactly what has the EV automotive sector been lacking, apart from extended battery range, of course? Well, here's our nomination: design character. Most family EVs are about as interesting to look at or sit in as a wet day on Eastbourne Beach in lockdown. But this one, Hyundai's Ioniq 5, is different. A decade or so back, the first combustion-era Ioniq model was the first car to be available in hybrid, electric and plug-in forms, a Prius rival that went further. This replacement EV design, originally launched in 2021, aimed to go further still. It was the founding member of Hyundai's Ioniq EV sub-brand, a lineup that was subsequently bolstered by the Ioniq 6, a mid-sized saloon. 3 years on, in mid-2024, it received the package of mid-term updates that have created the car that we'll be looking at here. As before, the Ioniq 5 is a difficult model to pigeonhole, not least because of its arresting looks, penned by 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹ποι𝘄, the man who styled many modern-era Lamborghinis. It's a family hatch with aggressive SUV overtones, and it still does make quite a statement. But in this updated form, can it still compete on equal terms with more recently launched rivals? Well, to find out, you are of course going to need the usual comprehensive car and driving road test. Visually then, this isn't an EV for the shy and retiring, but will the driving experience be equally extrovert? Well, assuming you're not at the wheel of the top Ioniq 5N performance model, we have incidentally tested that separately. Well, the answer is no, but there is still plenty to like about a mainstream version of this car. The main changes to tell you about with this updated model relate to larger battery sizes and consequently slightly longer range figures. So the smaller 58 kilowatt-hour power pack that base variant started out with back in 2021, which could only manage a rather modest 238 miles, is now 63 kilowatt-hours in size and can take you 273 miles. As before, this battery energizes a 170 PS rear-mounted motor with 350 Nm of torque, and that propels the car to 62 in 8.5 seconds on the way to a 114 miles an hour top speed that all mainstream variants of this car share. But this setup still isn't really the best combination for propelling nearly 2 tons of Korean EV and delivering a decent range reading. So ideally you'd stretch to the mid-level powertrain that we're trying here, which gets the larger of the 2 available Ioniq 5 batteries. This long-range power pack, originally 78 kilowatt-hours in size with a 298-mile range, now 84 kilowatt-hours with 354 miles possible between charges, or 320 miles in N-line spec. Now, to compensate for this denser battery's extra weight, Hyundai's tweaked the rear-mounted motor to produce 228 PS. That's 11 PS more than before, but the 7.4 second 0 to 62 sprint time remains much the same. There's another variant with the same long-range battery which adds an extra motor on the front axle, and that creates an all-wheel drive setup and boosts output to 325 PS. That's 20 PS more than before. In an all-wheel drive Ioniq 5 like that, the resulting 62 miles an hour sprint time falls to just 5.1 seconds, although the drive range figure also falls to a best of 307 miles. That's 22 miles better than before though. The same 84 kilowatt-hour battery and a wild 650 PS version of the same twin-motor all-wheel drive system is used by the top Ioniq 5N, but as we said, we've covered that car separately. The mainstream versions of this Ioniq 5 that Hyundai launched back in 2021 were intentionally set up to prioritize comfort. To that end, the brand engineered the mass market's very first integrated drive axle, which combines the drive shaft and the wheel bearings, and that benefits supple ride and handling stability. Owners, though, weren't universally positive about the rather soft feeling end result, so Hyundai fitted firmer rated smart frequency dampers as part of the 2023 model year update. It's the first time we've tried these, and there's a useful improvement over the rather floaty feel of the original without losing the comfortable travelling gait that's a welcome Ioniq 5 trademark. There is a sport driving mode button hanging from the steering wheel for those times that you want to push on a bit. That's one of 3 modes. The others are eco and normal. And talking of drive settings, as before, Hyundai provides a choice of 4 brake regeneration settings. You select those via these rather nasty feeling paddles behind the steering wheel. The most extreme of those, iPedal, slows the car down so much off throttle that you hardly ever need to use the brake, except when you're coming to a complete stop, of course. Through the turns, the Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tyres offer decent traction, and on the highway, the slippery shape aids cruising refinement. It is in fact a very complete package. We thought the Ioniq 5 a striking thing when we first saw it, and we still do in this updated form. Why designer 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹ποι𝘄 wanted to style this car in homage to Hyundai's deeply mediocre pony budget hatchback from 1975 remains a mystery, but the end result still looks like nothing else in this crowded segment. The changes made as part of this midlife update are intentionally subtle, and the original owner might notice the smarter alloy wheel designs. As before, there's a choice of either 19 or, as in this case, 20-inch rims. And here at the top of the range, Hyundai gives you the chance to add its trendy digital side mirror technology. We would pass on that one. As before, the Zorro-style profile panel slashes, the forward-leaning C-pillars and the flush door handles make quite the style statement. And this is a bigger car than it might look in pictures. It's 4.6 meters in length. If you're trying to spot the midterm visual updates, this redesigned front LED V garnish might be a giveaway to a fan of the brand. The nose panel appears opaque in daylight, but cleverly conceals a front LED running light bar which illuminates after dark. Otherwise, it's as before, so a clamshell bonnet with this oversized badge and flat profile set above these fabulous graph paper style 8-bit LED matrix headlamps detailed with 256 cubic pixels. The blanking plate that takes the place of a grille isn't ugly and over prominent as it is on many EVs, and the lower intake is surrounded by a silver frame angled at each corner. Overtaking presence? Well, yes there is. It's a little different at the back too, where the main change is one that we asked Hyundai for at launch, the addition of a rear wiper at last. There is also a slightly extended rear spoiler. Of course, the stuff you can't see hasn't changed at all, namely the Hyundai Motor Group's eGMP platform, which made possible the advanced 800-volt electrical architecture, which a lot of rivals still trying to match. Right, enough with all that. Time to take a seat inside. As you approach, the flush-fitting door handles spring out and the intricately sculpted doors open wide to admit you to the kind of futuristic cabin that a car looking like this ought to have. Now, Hyundai doesn't call this a cabin. What we have here instead is a living space. However you brand it, this is quite different from anything that you'll have tried elsewhere. It's light, it's airy, it's spacious, and like the exterior, it is rather self-consciously avant-garde, although the double screen panel on top of the dash is really now familiar from other Hyundai Motor Group products. Other interior design features though, well, they really really aren't. There's a walk-through footwell here, like you used to get on Minis and Beetles in the old days, and the huge glove box is actually a slide-out tray. Avoid base trim, and this unusual universal island centre storage console slides back and forth by 200mm. One of the few things about this cabin which has been significantly redesigned as part of this facelift. It's gained a button panel for the heating and cooling of the seats and steering wheel. These are functions which were previously buried in touchscreen menus. The other interior changes are minor and quickly covered. New pixel design door armrests, an auto-dimming digital centre mirror, a darker surround for the twin screens to reduce reflection, and a refreshed design for the seats and the upholstery. And as we've already mentioned, at the top of the range, you can add little corner mirror screens to replace the door mirrors. A better top spec option lies with Hyundai's lovely relaxation premium front seats, which extend right back and feature power retractable calf rests, so you can comfortably nod off for 40 winks while you're powering up at your local charging station. If you're not familiar with an Ioniq 5, you'll find on first acquaintance that it sits you quite high and SUV-like. Virtually all the interior touch points, the seats, the headliner, the door trim, the floor and the armrest are fashioned from eco-friendly, sustainably sourced materials like recycled plastic bottles or plant-based and natural wool-derived yarns, while the eco-processed leather and the bio-sourced paint both use plant-based extracts. Enough for the environmentalists, let's talk screens, and let's start with this 12.3-inch driver's supervision instrument cluster display. This isn't one of those screens which can be configured every which way, but if you're generous with the ticking boxes on the spec sheet, it does have a few tricks up its sleeve, notably the optional TechPack's blind view monitor, which gives you rear camera screens which flash up on either side of the instrument cluster when you activate the indicators. This display's standard functionality is all about a central section with selectable drive assist, car, nav and info options, and a line of little data entries along the bottom of the monitor positioned either side of a central miles per kilowatt hour meter, so you can see electricity consumption in real time. Everything else is taken care of by this LCD audio visual and navigation system, also 12.3 inches in size. It uses a special Zhongyi graphic user interface with various interior ambience settings. And as usual with Hyundai group models, it has two main home screen pages, one simple uncluttered one with a battery graphic, range, temperature, audio and navigation, or you can swipe across to a display of little icons, all of which can be moved about to your preferences, much like your phone. You can also create a split screen format, say with EV and audio info. Let's finish up front here with a look at cabin storage. We're not sure that the universal island sliding center console that we mentioned earlier adds very much to cabin practicality, and this huge shallow lower tray leaves stuff in open view that would usually be secreted away within a conventional lidded box between the seats. The island's lidded armrest covers a meanly proportioned compartment without any media ports. A wireless phone charger sits next to a pair of cup holders. As for practical touches elsewhere, USB sockets together with a 12-volt socket sit in this centrally placed open bin beneath the dash. We mentioned the big glove box. That makes up for the fact that the door bins are rather small, although they do incorporate useful bottle holders. Okay, let's take a look in the rear, the door for which opens so wide that you might struggle to put it right back in a really confined space. Thanks to a 3-meter wheelbase, which is even larger than something like a BMW X5, there's loads of room in the back, and it's aided by seats able to electrically slide fore and aft by up to 135 mils. The underpinnings are flat too, so there's no central tunnel to impede a centrally seated passenger. There really is room to stretch out here, even before you start sliding the bench or exploring the way you can recline the backrest right the way rearwards. Even with a 6-footer up front, it'll still feel limo-like, and there's plenty of headroom too. Not everything's ideal, of course. There are no individual reading lights. The plastic silver door pulls feel cheap, and on models equipped with the sliding universal island, it's annoying that there's no catch allowing you to slide that from here at the back. Plus, thanks to the tinted glazing, we could imagine it might be rather dark back here unless you get a top model which gives you the option to specify lighter coloured trim and the extra cost panoramic vision glass roof. Avoid base trim and you get a little lower 250 volt 16 amp 3-pin V2L or vehicle to load port for powering external devices. It's only usable though when the ignition's on. If the vehicle to load system's been fitted using an extra cost adapter, you'll be able to activate a second V2L port here within the powered driver's side charging flap, where you'll find the usual conventional socket. It's here embellished with 10 illuminated pixel squares which designate battery charge status. Now this second V2L socket is arguably more useful because you can use that when the ignition's off. Out back there's a power operated tailgate above base trim which rises to reveal a reasonably sized 520 litre boot. To give you some segment perspective, that's similar to a Volkswagen ID4 and a massive 118 litres more than you get with a rival Ford Mustang Mach-E. There is an underfloor section too, although most of that's obstructed by a central hump and the rest of it's so shallow that it'd only really be of any use for a charging cable or, well, something you've just run over. Disappointingly, you don't get either a ski hatch or a 40-20-40 split seat back, so there's no option to slide longer items like skis between a couple of rear seated folk. If you push forward the rear seats, up to 1,587 litres of total space can be revealed. Not all EVs in this segment give you extra storage space for the charging leads beneath the bonnet. The ID4 doesn't, for example, but you do get that here. If you go for the top all-wheel drive model with its extra front-mounted motor, this front space will inevitably suffer to the point 24 litres, where you won't be able to fit anything much more than a slim laptop bag inside. But with the more common rear-driven variants, like the one we have here, as you can see, it's quite a usefully sized 57 litre space. As we filmed in early 2025, this updated Ioniq 5 was priced from around £40,000 and being offered in 6 spec levels: Advanced, Premium, N-Line, Ultimate, which is what we have here, and N-Line S, plus there's also the top N version. Across the lineup, there are 2 battery size choices, 63 kWh and 84 kWh. The smaller battery is only offered with the 2 base trim levels. Most will want to find the extra £3,500 that Hyundai wants to trade up to the longer range of the larger 84 kWh battery. Select that larger battery with the top 3 mainstream trim levels and you'll have the choice of 2 motor outputs: 228 PS, which is what we have here, or 325 PS, which requires an extra £3,500 from you. That top Ioniq 5N, of course, which costs £65,000 as we filmed, has vastly more power, 650 PS. Here though, our focus is on the mainstream Ioniq 5 models. You'll probably already know that there's a vast amount of comparably priced choice in this car's particular mid-sized crossover EV segment. And if you are shopping in this class and you're making comparisons, then the most obvious rival to look at here is the Kia EV6 model, which shares most of this Hyundai's EV engineering. That EV6 comes only with the larger of the 2 Ioniq 5 batteries, and if you compare like with like, it costs only fractionally less. Your other segment choices around this price point are, as we said, many, with Tesla's lately updated Model 3 and Model Y cars leading the way when it comes to sales. In the chasing pack, you'll find Polestar's 2, Toyota's BZ4X, Renault's Scenic E-Tech Electric, Nissan's Ariya, Volvo's EX40, Volkswagen's ID4, Skoda's Enyaq, Ford's Capri and Explorer models, the Cupra Taycan and Subaru's Solterra, possibly also the Vauxhall Grandland Electric and Peugeot's E3008 and E408. Plus, there are emerging brand contenders like the BYD Sea-Lion 7, the Xpeng G6, the Leapmotor C10, the KGM Taurus EVX, the Skywell BE11, and the 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹𝟐. If you want something slightly more premium, which of course means it'll also be slightly more expensive, then there's BMW's i4, Mercedes EQA and EQB, Audi's Q4 and Q6 e-tron models, the Genesis GV60 and the Lexus UX300E and RZ. Despite all those many options, we could understand it if, given the avant-garde nature of this car, you concluded that there's simply nothing quite like an Ioniq 5. Now, if that is the case, then of course you're going to need to know just how generous Hyundai has been here with the standard spec. So let's take a look at that right now. Even base advanced spec comes with quite a lot. You'll get 19-inch wheels, LED multifaceted reflector headlamps, rear parking sensors, of course. There's keyless entry too. There's navigation-based smart cruise control and a heat pump to preserve driving range in cold weather. Inside there's an LCD driver's instrument cluster. There's heat for the front seats and the steering wheel, wireless phone charging, a rear view camera, sliding rear seat adjustment and interior mood lighting. Media stuff is taken care of by a 12.3-inch LCD audio visual and navigation system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's probably worth finding the extra for mid-level premium trim, which gives you some extra camera drive assist features, a powered gesture tailgate, a sliding center console, rear door blinds, and the useful V2L system, which allows you to charge external devices from the drive battery. N-Line gives you much the same level of trim, but with a sportier look, which includes 20-inch N-Line wheels. For luxury spec, you have to stretch to this Ultimate model or N-Line S trim for luxury spec with a sporty touch. With both those trim levels, you get rather a lot, specifically Hyundai's active sound design system, which adds sound effects under acceleration, along with 20-inch wheels, laminated glazing and solar glass. Inside, with the top two range spec levels, there's a head-up display too, a digital rear view mirror, there's an upgraded Bose premium audio system with 7 speakers, there are ventilated front seats, leather upholstery and heated rear seats with an easy remote folding feature. With N-Line S spec, you get part Alcantara upholstery too and a smart park assist system which will maneuver you into tight spaces. Options are few and they are mainly restricted to this ultimate trim level. There's a tech pack that you can add to this top model which gives you remote smart park assist that allows you to stand outside the car and park it via the key fob, parking collision avoidance assist, a surround view monitor and the useful blind spot view monitor system which brings up rear camera feeds in the instrument cluster. Upgrade to Tech Pack Max and you'll get all this plus electric sliding rear seats, the desirable front relaxation seats which recline right back, and the digital side door mirrors which can also be added as an individual option on an N-Line S model. Upgrade further to Tech Max Plus and you get all that plus a panoramic vision roof too. We'll finish as usual with safety. Hyundai likes to think it's at the segment forefront here, and there is a lot included as standard. Tick off forward collision avoidance assist, lane keep assist, lane follow assist, intelligent speed limit assist, and driver attention alert. There is also Hyundai's highway drive assist semi-autonomous drive system, although you only get that with all its functionality if you avoid base trim. From premium spec upwards, you'll also get a junction turning feature which automatically brakes the cars to stop you from pulling out in front of someone, and blind spot collision avoidance assist too. The Ioniq 5 may not have an advantage over many of its rivals when it comes to EV range, but it definitely does when it comes to the question of charging speed. The advanced eGMP platform that this car shares with two fellow Hyundai Motor Group contenders, also in this segment, that's the Kia EV6 and the Genesis GV60, allows it to use an advanced 800-volt electrical infrastructure. Old tech 400-volt systems are still much more common in this segment, and the result of that is that it can use the new breed of ultra-fast DC public chargers, which are springing up all over Europe. Even with a normal fast DC charger, the fact that this car will charge at up to 260 kilowatts gives it a useful advantage over most of the competition. The charging system also supports both domestic wallbox charging and mainstream public 400-volt high-speed charging using the motor and the inverter to convert the voltage from 400 volts to 800 volts for optimized charge times wherever possible. For both battery sizes, a 350 kilowatt ultra rapid DC charger will provide a 10 to 100% charge in just 18 minutes, and 62 miles of driving range will be available in 5 minutes. A more common 50 kilowatt DC charger would need 58 minutes for a 10 to 100% charge of the base 63 kilowatt hour battery. It'd be 1 hour 16 minutes for this test car's long range 84 kilowatt hour battery though. From home, expect an AC charge from a typical 7.4 kilowatt garage wall box to take around 9.5 hours with the 63 kilowatt hour battery, or 5 hours 50 minutes if you have a 3-phase 11 kilowatt supply. For the 84 kilowatt hour battery, it'd be about 12 hours from a 7.4 kilowatt garage wall box and 7 hours 35 minutes using an 11 kilowatt supply. There is now an added battery conditioning feature which will enable the Ioniq 5 to automatically adapt its battery temperature while you're traveling. That ensures optimal charging conditions when you reach a charging point. That improves real-life charging performance in hot or cold ambient conditions. This function activates automatically when a charging point is entered into the car's navigation system using connected routing. And talking about charging in cold conditions, that reminds us that Hyundai has now standardized a heat pump on this car, and that's to preserve driving range in really cold temperatures. In terms of drive efficiency, well, we've been averaging around 3 miles per kilowatt hour on this test. With a lot of town travel though, you could get that figure up to around 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour if you drove in the eco mode all the time and you used the fiercest I-pedal brake regeneration setting. As before, all Ioniq 5 models come with a 1-year subscription to the Ionity charging network, plus Hyundai's 5-year unlimited mileage warranty too, with an 8-year 100,000-mile high voltage battery warranty. There's a 5-year annual health check, a 3-year map care navigation update program. There is also a roadside assistance package and a 12-year anti-corrosion warranty. As usual with an EV, of course, the battery is covered for 8 years and you're entitled to a low 2% benefit in kind taxation rate, along with 0 rated road tax and free entry to low emission zones. Although, as we tested, we are expecting all 3 of those things to be reviewed in spring 2025. Servicing, that's every 2 years or 20,000 miles. Insurance groups tend to range between 29 and 40 for the mainstream models, and residual values after 3 years and 36,000 miles, well, they range between 51 and 57%. Changes made to this updated Ioniq 5 won't be enough to persuade you into one if you weren't already convinced before. But if you were, seduced no doubt by the avant-garde looks, this mild mid-term update could be the clinching factor for you. As before, this car positions Hyundai toe-to-toe with the most advanced offerings from European brand automotive design. It looks arresting and it lacks nothing in terms of the latest EV technology, except perhaps for a truly Tesla-style extended battery range driving figure. but you can bet that Hyundai is working on that, and certainly improvements have been made as part of this midterm update. Is any brand faster at translating advanced concept into reality? What's even more impressive is that it does so without diluting extreme stylistic expression to something more palatable. That's certainly not happened here. Park an Ioniq 5 in the high street and people are still going to look. Invite others to join you inside and passengers are going to comment. If that isn't the feel you're after with your new EV, then lots of other brands will better satisfy you. But if it is, then this car is one that you need to try.